Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Legend of Korra, the series review, part 1. So things got a little long, and so this is just part 1. So, The Legend of Korra lasted for 4 seasons, and it lasted for about 52 episodes, and it came out in 2012 and lasted all the way to 2014. It is the sequel series to that of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just like with the original show, this show was created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konzisko. And so, needless to say, this show is beyond like dividing the fan base. I am divided when it comes to this show for the most part. I don't particularly like it. Like, here's the thing. I do not love it. I do not think it's great, but I do think it's pretty good. The problem is there's only one awesome season, and that is season 3. The other 3 seasons are just okay. They start off really good, but then they start to fall off kind of flat. Well, except for season 4, that was just a boring season because the budget got slashed and all this other stuff. But this is probably the most controversial Avatar animated project other than that of the 2 live action series. It seems like when it comes to the Avatar universe, these 2 guys struck gold when they created the original series. It was too good for its own good. Like Mark Hamill, who voiced Lord Ozai, literally said that this show was too smart to succeed. It was so complex that it's not for a kid's cartoon series, and he's surprised it didn't get canceled because it was too smart for its own good. And he's right. This show never talked down to kids, it talked up to them. But the thing is, it wasn't just kids watching this show, it was teenagers, it was adults. I was watching this show well after my college years. And this show, like at first, like the original one, I didn't watch it at first because I thought it was weird looking with the animals and stuff like that. But then something happened. I just sat down, watched it, and I fell in love with the show. The original series is near perfect and everything. It is literally considered one of the greatest cartoons of all time. Like, that's how good that show is. So making anything else is gonna be like really, really hard to match that. And so far, nobody's been able to match it. The Last Airbender was an atrocity and everything when they whitewashed the entire movie and made the brown people the villains. Then you have the Netflix show, which is just okay, but they tend to get all the characters wrong and change little things here and there. Then there is this series that has divided the fan base and everything. And I don't know what happens in the comics. I've never read the comics. I know the gist of certain things. I know that Zuko and Aang had a hard time trying to get the Earthbenders and the Fire Nation people, the Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation to like get along after the war. I know what happened to Zuko's mom. I know what happened to Zuko's sister. At some point, I read online about how there are still air bison around and how there are still dragons around, how Zuko got his dragon. Other than that, and Suki and everything, about how she started to lose hope while in the prison until Sokka came to rescue her and stuff. Other than that, I don't know what else happened, so I can't really comment on whether or not it is good and stuff. But like, it just seems like everybody who like tries to make any type of sequel or adaptation or reboot tends to just fall on their butt or on their face. And when it comes to this series, you gotta put the blame, when it comes to the Korra series, that is, you gotta put the blame where the blame has to fall to. You have to blame Nickelodeon, the studio, because they meddled in this show. You have to blame the two creators because even though Nickelodeon like interfered in their show, they still should have been able to put out a banger and with the restrictions that they had, but yet they couldn't airbend themselves around the obstacle and everything. Get it? Because Aang likes to he doesn't like to go at a confrontation head on. He likes to go around it and stuff. They couldn't go around the obstacle and yet just kept making something flat. Then you gotta blame like the writers and stuff because they also helped mess the show up. And so you had these three fractions, these three factors and stuff that, just all couldn't like be on the same playing field, and there was no balance with the show. The show is very chaotic. The show is very messy. Continuity, like you wonder, like how the heck did this happen? Where did this come from? What happened to this and all this other stuff? Because for the most part in this show, they don't really tell you a whole lot at first. See, originally, Nickelodeon did not want to make a follow-up to the adult lives, or at least the older teenage lives of the original series main cast. So instead, the creators made like three comics and everything. So then at some point in time after the horrible Last Airbender movie, the creators wanted another stab at it, to fix what Nickelodeon and M. Night Shyamalan did with that movie. But Nickelodeon did not want to make another Avatar series with the female lead. They were very, very hesitant of it. Somehow the guys were able to convince them. And so Nickelodeon is like, all right, fine, but you're getting a mini series. You're only going to get one season, and it's going to be like 12 or 13 episodes. So the guys cooked up something in those 12 episodes, not thinking they was going to get 3 extra seasons and stuff. And the thing that they cooked up was just a big jumbled mess. I like to call Korra the Batman Beyond series. And Batman Beyond, is set 80 years after Batman the Animated Series, or roughly around that time. And with that, you have a teenage Batman who took up the mantle. The older Batman is still in the series as a mentor, and he has a bunch of new this new Batman has his own new villains to deal with. But there is a problem. Fans wanted to see, hey, what happened to this? What happened to this person? This and that. So they started to incorporate every once in a while an older villain to see what happened to him. And it always worked out. Bruce Timm had this nice way of balancing things out to where all of the Batman animated series stuff and the older Bruce Wayne didn't overshadow the Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis series and stuff. Even the architecture, some of it looked futuristic while other ones still looked pretty normal and everything. There was like a nice little balance. Here, not so much, because you gotta remember, forget seasons 2, 3, and 4, only keep in mind with season 1. Season 1 just changed everything. It changed the animation style to make it look more mature because the fans of the original were getting older. It changed the way bending looked. It changed the architecture of the buildings and the landscape and everything. Where were all the hybrid animals at? Like you saw Naga, you saw a bison, you saw a ring-tailed lemur, and you saw Pabu and everything, and that was literally it. You no longer saw animals just roam around freely. You didn't see people eat exotic food. And like people were no longer dependent in riding on animals and stuff. Everything actually looked like 1920s, like, China and stuff. I've heard some fans say that this show was too Americanized. And I've seen people defend it saying it wasn't. You just don't know what ancient China looked like and blah, 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 and stuff like that. Like I've read stuff where people said that. But when the creators of the show literally said the Republic City is literally Manhattan, just set in Asia and everything, therefore it is Americanized and everything. But here's the thing though, you gotta remember your history. China around that era, like the early 1900s, was very, very influenced by both America and Europe. So therefore the architecture changed. So what you see in Republic City is actually, yes, it's Americanized, but yes, buildings did actually look like this in China. Like people who say that clearly have never watched an actual Asian movie set in the actual Asian country made by actual Asian people. I guess they never saw Jet Li's Fearless. They never saw Donnie Yen's Yip Man and everything. If you did, you would see these type of buildings and clothes and everything like that. Was it around the Boxer Rebellion? I'm not sure, but maybe. Don't quote me on that. But like, yeah, so I was familiar with this art style, but it did look vastly different. No longer did you see plains of grass and open fields and desert roads and stuff like that. No longer did you see this older Asian, like, architecture from like ancient times. No longer did you see, 'cause remember, you gotta keep in mind, season one and season one only, not the other ones, because when you get to the other seasons, things go back to normal, like with the original series. You no longer saw people have handheld weapons. You no longer saw people being dependent on animals, the clothes, this and that. In order to tell, because see, Republic City was Aang and Zuko, they brought all the nations together for like on this island and everything, so everybody can live in like harmony and everything. All the benders and non-benders. And it was supposed to be different from all the rest of the nations and stuff, creating that of a fifth nation, if you will. And so in order to tell who is from what nation, you gotta pay attention to their eye color and stuff, because wearing their clothes, it just don't matter no more, because everybody dresses relative the same in the same bland kind of boring colors. Every once in a while you'll see somebody with like a green belt or a red scarf, so you know what nation they came from. But now the show emphasizes very strongly on eye color. In the original series, firebenders were really the only people who had different eye color. It was kind of like goldish, kind of red almost, and a little bit of oranges, like orange. And then everybody else had either a variety of either blue eyes, brown eyes, or green eyes. It didn't really matter, you know what I'm saying? Here, they make sure you pay attention to everybody's eyes because they made them very bright and very colorful and stuff. So you know what nation everybody's coming from. Fire Nation still have their same color eyes. Water Nation has blue. Earth Kingdom has that of like green. And the Air Nomads, people who aren't that many of them, they have anything from like brownish to something like that. And so, like, a lot of people just didn't like the change of this new series. They wanted everything to stay the same. And like I said before, bending has now changed. Bending back in the past used to be more martial arts looking. It had more of a fluid kind of flow to it, because they incorporated a lot of different martial arts and stuff. It was all about hand movements and like how you position your feet and the flowing and going back and forth. It was very, very fluid in like a martial arts short like poses and stuff. Not like Last Airbender where it's literally like a dance. In this new series, bending has changed significantly. Now it's more like MMA. It's a bunch of like short, quick like jabs. It's very like precise. It's very crisp and everything. Gone is the fluidity. Gone is like, the hardcore martial arts style to it. And even when like, there's even like a tri bending tournament where the three nations, three benders, like all fight like another team. So you have like earth, water, and fire, and that's pretty cool and everything. Pro bending, I think it's called. And so like with that, when Korra joined, um I think Mako literally told, "Oh no, that's the old school way of bending. You gotta learn the new style and everything." Everything just changed, and that made fans be very disconnected from that of the series and stuff. And the thing with me is like, after the last Airbender movie, I heard there was going to be an animated series called Legend of Korra that follows a female avatar from the Water Nation. And they talked about how it was going to be different, like the landscape from Republic City is going to be different. And I'm like, and because this is set like 60 or 70 years after the events of the original series. I'm all like, all right, cool, let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like our real life Earth and everything, things change over a couple of like 100 years and everything. Like, I'm ready, you know what I'm saying? And so I watched that first episode and I just fell in love with everything I saw. I love the way Korra looked. I love the way Naga looked and everything. I love the way Republic City looked. I love how energetic she was and wanting to go to the big city and seeing how everything's changed. And now you have like cars and stuff like that and boats and like jets and or planes or whatever. And she's just running through the streets with her giant polar dog and it's freaking people out like they never saw a giant animal before. And I was like, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Like I was just loving everything I was seeing. And then we got like a glimpse of who our villain is, Armand, and somehow, like, there are these equalists and everything, these chi blockers and people that are non-benders who hate benders. I'm like, oh, that's perfect for like the plot of this series. Now, at that time, I had no idea it was only supposed to be for season one. So I think I started watching it. And I think I started watching it with everybody else, but then after I just dipped out the show, couple of years later, I finished it up and everything. And I didn't know that it was only supposed to be for like one season. But then you get to like the pro bending stuff, and that starts to be cool and everything. But then it happened. Once you do get into the pro bending stuff, and then you get into the love triangle that so many fans hate, the show just decreases in quality. It slows down to where you actually forget about the main plot that's going on with like the villain. And because you don't binge it and it was like a weekly thing, it felt a lot longer. Honest to God, I thought season one was longer than what it was. It felt like 20 episodes, but it was only 12 because all that pro bending love triangle stuff just took so long and everything. It felt like a drag and everything. And so then when you do get the motivation and the true meaning and the true identity of like the villain, you're just kind of like, really? That's it? Like, how the heck? And then you're just left disappointed and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, was this really what season one? Now that you know that it's supposed to be one season and one season only, is this really how everything was supposed to go down? Like, this weak villain who's powerful, yes, but then when you find out how he's able to take people's bending away, the first question you ask is, how the heck is that even logical when nothing like that was explained in the original series? Then you're kind of like, dude, She didn't even defeat the villain. Like his brother literally took their lives and everything. And then you're just kind of like, okay, now she has her bending back, and it's just kind of like, what did I just watch? Like it just leaves you feeling so flat. Plus, you don't really like this avatar because of her attitude and everything. It felt like an extreme watered down version of the original series and stuff. And it's just kind of like, how could the creators mess this up so badly? That is why I fear for Avatar 7 Havens and stuff. I'm all like, what if they screw that up too? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm worried and everything. Like, and not to mention, you go all of season one and you don't really know what happened to the original characters and stuff. See, here's the problem. Remember when I said about the whole Batman Beyond thing? Well, Batman Beyond was smart not to give us too much information into the past, but just sprinkle it around in those 3 seasons and then in the animated movies. Still to this day, we didn't know what happened to Nightwing, the original Robin, not until like the comics and stuff. We didn't know what happened to the Joker until the animated movie, some of the villains as well, and also the second Robin. So he was smart not to give us what we really wanted, because you had to focus on your new cast of characters. One of the biggest problems in this show, and especially in season one, was they gave the fans a glimpse of what they could have had and what they wanted, then they took it away. And by that, I mean the original Team Avatar. We get flashbacks. First, they're very quick and very brief, like a flash, because Aang is trying to talk to her in the spirit world and everything. And the moment we saw older Toph, older Aang, and older like Sokka, we lost our minds. Then when we got an actual full flashback and we got to see everything that happened, how their appearances change, how their voices change, how Aang is a better airbender and a better avatar and everything, we exploded. And since then, all we've ever asked for is an adult version of the original series, which now we are about to get come this October on Paramount Plus. So crap, I gotta go and buy that again. I just got rid of Paramount Plus and stuff. And that was the problem. They gave us a really cool like flashback and we just wanted more. We know what happened to Katara because of the simple fact she's an old woman living in the South Pole. But then the problem is, well, what happened to everybody else? We know Aang has to be dead because in order for Korra to even be born, Aang had to die. And that was just tragic and heartbreaking on that. No, not Aang. We love Aang. He's our Angie Poo and everything, Like, why is he dead and everything? We want that older series. But we have this new avatar and Aang is dead, but what happened to Toph? What happened to Sokka? What happened to Suki? What happened to Zuko? What happened to like Mei and Ty Lee and Fire Lord or Ozai and Azula and stuff? Iroh, like what happened to all these people and stuff? Not to mention, not only what happened to them, but how are there sky bison in the world that still look exactly the same as sky bison if Appa was the last sky bison? We see ringtail lemurs, which means Momo must have just made it with another animal. Makes sense. But like none of this stuff was ever explained at the end of season one. So they was literally just gonna give us one contained season with all these unanswered questions, and that frustrated people. Then, of course, as they got additional seasons, they started to expand on the lore of the original series a whole lot more. Some of it's kind of confusing and everything. And I truly feel like it's just something that was never truly planned out in detail. The original series was a passion project of the creators. They spent a good amount of time crafting everything out. Here, they had a short amount of time. They was uncertain if they was ever going to get another season, and their budget started to get slashed and everything. In fact, halfway into season 3, Nickelodeon said, screw it. We're just gonna drop this from like TV and just put it on our website. Their actual website, not the app, because the app wasn't around back then. And so a lot of people didn't even know how to find this series. That's one reason why it took me so long to watch it and everything. I literally had no idea. And so with all these unanswered questions and everything, it's just kind of like, it just felt like a jumbled mess. And yes, I put the blame on all three factors: the writers, the creators, and the studio and stuff. Because the studio just didn't care. And the creators did the best they could, but they didn't do good enough. Same with like the writers and stuff. And then when the show got additional seasons, we started to find out what happened to some of these characters and stuff. Like who had kids and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? What did they do to help or like, ruin the world and everything? So like, we knew Aang and Katara had a son named Tenzin in the first season. He's there throughout the first season. But then towards the end, we find out they had another child called Boomy. But then it's not until season 2 we find out they have a daughter named Kaya and everything. We knew Zuko had a grandson because his grandson is named General Iroh and everything. But we didn't know if Zuko had a daughter or like a son, or if he was even still with May. Heck, we don't see Zuko until, God, what season is it? I think it's season 3, I think. And Toph, we knew that Toph had like a daughter. She's all in season 1. But we really didn't know nothing about Toph, or if even Toph was still alive. And then we find out in season 3 that Toph actually had 2 daughters. And Toph just kind of abandoned them for like 25 years. Not to mention, the show made both Aang and Toph into horrible parents and everything. And since Aang was a horrible parent, then you got to put some of the blame on Katara because she allowed this to happen. And, as for everybody else, well, we don't really know. Like Sokka, we know we have to assume that he's dead because we don't see or hear from him. I think they said he's dead or whatever, but we don't know who killed him. And it's still to this day a fan theory. We don't know what happened to Suki. We don't know what happened to May or Ty Lee. But we do know that there are chi blockers, so either Ty Lee or Suki taught them and stuff. And so it's kind of like, this would have never been explained if they didn't get additional seasons. Then, like I said before, they made like Aang and Toph like horrible parents, but then it's kind of like, when it comes to their kids, the show got even more confusing. Like, people are still wondering why. Like, why? Wait, I'll get to them a little bit later. But back to like the original Team Avatar. Then fans got pissed because they didn't help out in the big battles and everything. Like Katara, I am so disappointed with what they did to Katara. She's just a master healer now. She's still a waterbending master, but she's on the sidelines. We see her pop up in season 1. I don't know if she shows up in, she probably pops up in every season just for like a couple of like seconds or like a minute. And she never helps out with the battle, which is really odd because Katara is a warrior. She literally said when people are in danger, she will not just stand by as they're being threatened and everything. She's a go-getter. She will help people. She's a hero. This show doesn't have her fighting whatsoever. And you wonder why wasn't she more prominent in season 2 during the Water Tribe Civil War? And I've seen so many fans justify this with saying, well, they're old, leave them alone. They can't fight no more, they're old. No, I don't accept that because in the original series, Boomy was 112 years old, had bulging muscles, and was one of the greatest earthbenders who could earthbend with just his face. And he whooped on everybody, took back his kingdom, and brought down an entire factory on a mountain. The man was 112. Then there is the White Lotus, a bunch of people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s who fought to preserve the earth, and they fought against the Fire Nation during Sozin's Comet when their bending was hiked up to like 1,000, if not 1,000,000. So the original series has already established that old people aren't just that old and feeble, they're pretty strong and they can still bend and they can still fight. But now you have every old person from the original series just sit everything out. And then because of that, the creators had to address this in the last season by having Toph just say, we're too old and it's just let the kids handle all this. No, that's a cop-out and everything. And that statement is a direct response to fans wondering where the heck is everybody. Now, technically, yes, Toph does rescue her daughters and she fights a little bit, but not much. Then you have Zuko, he's fighting just a little bit, but not much in season 3. And that's about it. And so they tried to make the fans a little happy by having them fight, but at the same time they didn't because they literally wanted to focus on the new main cast. But it makes the older cast look like, or older characters look like cowards and everything. Then there are all the kids and grandkids. Now, Aang grandkids are really strong. And each of them, there's 4 of them, they have eye color of each nation and stuff. However, Aang and Katara kids, it baffles me how they're such weak fighters and everything. Don't get me wrong. Like, hey, take Boomy out the equation because Boomy had no powers originally, but then he got them in like season 3. And so he was just learning. So excuse him. But Tenzin is pretty good and everything, and he can hold down in a good fight and do some really impressive moves. But the fact that he got his butt whooped by Shahir and Zahir, like Zahir is literally a brand new airbender. The dude shouldn't be that good, and yet he was able to whoop on Tenzin after a while because other people started ganging up on Tenzin. Then you have Kaya and everything. Their daughter, I am sorry, but she is a weak waterbender. She can hold her own pretty good for a couple of minutes, but after like a few minutes, she's getting her butt like handed to her by everybody. Zahir, the airbender, that one armless waterbender was whooping her behind. And it's like, how and everything. She's the daughter of Aang and Katara. They both taught her and stuff. Well, maybe Katara taught her because Aang was a neglectful father. But it shouldn't be like this. Not to mention, I don't understand why she's just walking around with like no water skins. Katara always brought like water with her in some way or another. Sometimes she didn't, but for the most part she did, especially when she knew things were getting crazy and she might have to fight. This woman just walks around with like no water and there's barely any water around her and stuff. I don't get that. Now, Toph, her kids and everything, they're really good at metal bending and earth bending. And but after a while, like in season one, you start to see Lynn start to get her butt kicked after a while. Now, Sue is a much better metal bender and can throw down a lot, but even she eventually gets her butt kicked there after a while. And it's just weird how their kids aren't that great. I guess because they didn't want to outshine the new characters. But when you watch these new characters, Ben, like Mako and Bolin and stuff, they're good, but they're not like impressive. You know what I'm saying? Like they are really good and they have to fight together to hold down, but they're not that impressive. Mako is a firebender and lightning bender, but you never really see him lightning bend, even though he can. You see him lightning bend at work. You see him one other time in season one, then you see him do it again in season three. Maybe season four, but that's about it. Bolin, he's a pretty good earthbender, but he's no Toph and everything. But he's able to lava bend, which is impressive, and he picks it up really quickly. But then by season four, after he learned it in season three, you don't see him do it in season four that much. And I don't get why. And it's also like with like, you know, the final battles and the bending and stuff. Season one, the battles are just okay, but nothing to root about. Season two, once again, they're all right, and the last battle is pretty good, but it's just a giant kaiju fight. Season three is where they really up the ante, and the show should have ended at season three. The last battle was very similar to the one with Ozai and Aang. Then you get season four, which the bending is just a huge letdown. Because season four just wanted to focus on the political stuff and the personal growth, if you can call it that. Another thing that weighed this show down were all the unnecessary romances. The reason why we got that whole love triangle in season one, I truly believe, was because people wanted to see it in the original series with Aang, Katara, and Zuko, but we never got that. So they're like, okay, we'll just put it in this show. But then it just started to be a bit of a mess. But the love triangle is like, okay, whatever. It's a teen show. So teen drama type stuff. I'm used to that. But then they started hooking everybody else up with everybody else. And it just felt kind of weird. Bolin just literally just kept hooking up with wanted to hook up with every girl he sees. And hit on Korra, hit on Azumi, hit on Opal, hit on Korra's like cousin and everything. It didn't feel real. It just felt like he was horny. Then you have Aang's grandson, who's probably like 7, hitting on like this one girl, and you know, and then it's hinted that Azumi and Korra are actually romantically linked at the very end of the series, which blew the internet's mind. I still remember that reaction. And it's kind of like, how did this happen? They went from hating each other to trying to be friends, barely there, and then being friends. And when did this happen and stuff? I'll get into that a little bit more later. And then, because people didn't like none of these romances, they ended them very quickly after the next season, because each season is self-contained with a little stuff dripping over from the last season. And the thing about that is that it caused so many characters, the main cast, to get sidelined in upcoming seasons. By season 3 and season 4, both Mako and Azumi started to have less and less screen time. And it's like, where the heck are they at? Especially Azumi and everything. She just basically is the chauffeur and stuff. Then you have Aang kids who are barely present in season 4. They literally are background characters with no dialogue or only say 1 or 2 things. And it's like, why? You built them up since season 2 and season 3, just especially season 2. And then you just completely forget about them because the budget got slashed. I don't get that. Oh, also I forgot. Zuko's grandson, he sucks at bending. Anyway, So yeah, characters just started to get less and less screen time, less and less character development because they tried to push away from all the romantic interest, and then it's because of the whole budget. This show is literally just a mess. But one major complaint that the majority of the fandom has is with the Avatar herself. Not because she's a female, but because of her personality and how she's a prodigy. Now, one thing I found kind of strange about this series was kind of like the clothing, bending, architecture, and all this other stuff, and how it changed after Aang's like era. You know what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing, right? For over 1,000 years, the world of the Avatar has always looked relative the same. The same type of landscape, the same type of clothing, buildings, bending and everything, animals, like, like for the most part is remain relative the same and only tweaked here and there. We see this in season 2 with Avatar One, who is the first Avatar. Yeah, it's just weird after thousands of years, all of a sudden after Aang, everything just feels and looks different. Like it just like they jump like a couple of thousand million years into the future and they look completely different. Like the clothes, the bending, the buildings, and everything. Yes, technically, that is kind of how civilization is for us as well on planet Earth. Thousands of years ago, it looked a certain way. But here's the thing. Every hundred of years, like, the world is changing. The clothes change, the food change, the weapons change. Did I say clothing already? Anyway, the buildings change, cars, planes, boats. Everything is always changing, but in the world of the Avatar universe, everything always looks the same. It's just kind of weird how all of a sudden everything looks so different in this series. And then you get the Seventh Havens, which we still don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But when you look at that one picture and that one picture only, it looks like it's back in time. But this is set like after Korra and everything. So I felt like, while I appreciate, but then also, oh, I forgot to mention, but then when you get to like season 2 and season 3 and 4, we finally now get to go to the other nations, well, except for the Fire Nation. For some reason, the Fire Nation is never shown in this series. I'm not sure why. Like, that's the one place I really wanted to see because they were so evil back in the day. And they were always technologically advanced. Now with Republic City being like, having some of that advancement from the Fire Nation, it makes you wonder how more advanced are they. But in the other seasons, we start to see the other nations. And everything looks the same as it did in the original series. The only difference is like in the Earth Kingdom, they have like cars. Also, you still don't see no animals in this series. And there's now a metal city that the metal benders built and everything. But everything else looks the same. Clothing, people, buildings. It's like nothing has changed. Nothing resembles Republic City. And so it's just kind of odd, in my opinion. I mean, here's my thing. I respect they wanted to make Republic City look so vastly different. But at that same time, they kind of pandered to the fans and kept the other nations looking exactly the same. Pick a lane and stick with it. Don't be swerving back and forth. Speaking of Republic City goes against everything we've learned about the original series. Everything that Avatar Roku and Uncle Iroh tried to teach like Aang and Zuko is that the 4 nations have to be just that, 4. So technically, Aang and Zuko, when they built this, they fulfilled the Fire Nation's like goal in some kind of way. The Fire Nation wanted to take over the world and have the Fire Nation just rule everything. In a way, that kind of happened with Republic City. Republic City is a mashup of all the nations. Everybody is living together and everything. And as a result, they have left behind their old ways. And that just went completely against what we learned about the original series. Now, technically, yes, I do like the idea of everybody being together and interacting and stuff like that. But they set up the whole premise of like the whole lore of keeping them separate. I mean, even in the past, when the nations were separate, people can still go and visit from other nations. Like they didn't care. They didn't keep people out. They allowed people in. But it's just kind of odd that they're like they become like the air nomads. They have detached themselves and become their own thing. And it just goes completely against what we learned in the past. Now, when it comes to the other nations, yes, it makes now sense that somebody has to be a bad guy and somebody has to be a bad guy from the other nations. Once the show, because after season one, they kind of abandoned almost everything they created in season one. In season two, we see the pro bending very briefly and then it's gone for the rest of the series. We see Republic City for a little bit in season two, but then we go to the water tribes. But then the Republic City kind of comes back and forth like a little bit more in season three. And like I said before, a little bit in season two. They go completely back to it in season like 4 and stuff. But like, so you have to have a villain from another nation. Okay, that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Since they did Fire Nation in the original series for all 3 seasons, it makes sense for them to go to like a different nation. What they did was like for season 2, the water tribe, well actually for season 1 and 2, the water tribe are the villains. And then for season 3 and 4, the Earth Kingdom are like now the villains and stuff. The air nomads are still just air nomads and we never get to see the Fire Nation. It would have been nice probably if all 4 nations were to be villains in this series, but I get why they didn't do it. And I figured at some point other people in other nations would turn bad, like the Earth Kingdom, because in the Earth Kingdom, like we spent 2 whole seasons in the Earth Kingdom in the original series, briefly at the water tribes, and then all season 3 in the Fire Nation, or at least the first couple of episodes, the first half and the second half, we're at the Air Nomad Temple, and then someplace else near like the Fire Nation or on it, just like far, far away. And so with that, like we actually still barely know anything about the water tribes and stuff. Like I said before, season 1, we briefly was there for about 3 episodes out of like 20. And then that was it. And so here we're back in the water tribe and I still know a lot less than what I did in the original series. I now know that polar bear dogs are like the main animal, and I guess that's what you ride on because of Naga, and that's about it. In season 2, the creators decided to expand upon the spirit world. This pretty much divided fans as well, because some people feel like they butchered that of the spirit world and everything, and that of spirits. Some people feel like there are things just better not explained, and you make up your own headcanon. So in season 2, we got introduced to Wan, the very first avatar. And we got introduced to Rava and that of Vatu, these 2 spirits, one of good and one of darkness. And so, well, actually one of light and one of darkness, because technically spirits aren't good or bad. They're just like, you know, whatever. And so it explained just how humans got bending, how humans, like, one human became the avatar in the spirit world, and how it's linked in this and that. It's kind of like the whole Mike Myers thing. Not everything needs to be explained. People who are huge fans of the Halloween series don't want Mike Myers to have a backstory. People like myself want Mike Myers to have a backstory. I actually don't mind that they expanded upon like how the avatar was created in the spirit world and stuff like that, because that whole entire like episode was very fascinating. My problem is that it was all done in one episode and couldn't be expanded upon. So just like with the rest of this entire series, they couldn't flesh things out the way they wanted to. The whole wand and spirit thing should have been its own series. Something that huge with that much lore really needed its own series to feel like, complete. Here, it just feels like rushed. Basically, we learn that, like, well, I'll get into him a little bit later, but like back to the spirits, one thing I do have a problem with is how the spirits in the spirit world is not predicted, depicted in like this series as opposed to the other one. They're vastly different to where you feel like you're watching two complete different shows and two complete different universes. In the original series, the spirit world was barely ever touched upon. They would show it in only a few episodes, and that was it. Basically, we didn't know much of nothing about the spirit world or the spirits within there or how you get into the spirit world. And so it was just kind of left up in the air, and mostly that for headcanon. The spirit world depicted in the original series was kind of bleak and like mysterious and almost like scary and everything. Like it was a place you did not want to go and you never wanted to get lost in. The animals there, you just never knew what you was gonna get. Some would be rude, some would be nice, other would be mean and everything, and some just felt downright evil. And so like one thing I've noticed about the original series is that animals in the spirit world, or the spirits I should say, look like normal animals. That way, when the people see them, they're just kind of like, what kind of animal is that? Because they're used to hybrids and everything. And so then when you start to see an actual normal animal in the real world, it makes you now wonder, like with the Earth Kingdom kings, like Bear, was he a spirit and everything? Because a spirit can take any form they want, but for whatever reason, they choose to look like normal animals in the real world whenever they do go to the real world. Like Wan Shi Tong is a giant owl. He looks like an owl. His like, what is it? Foxes look like normal foxes and stuff. There was that monkey that Aang talked to. There was Haybot, who was like a panda bear and stuff. And then there is, I forget his name, who steals people faces and stuff. But like he was a giant centipede. And so they never really had like a otherworldly look to them unless like they wanted to do like a demonic looking thing like Haybot did when he was like really angry. Then there's this painted lady who took the form of a human for some reason. And she's like really glowy and stuff like that. And one thing we've noticed about spirits is that they can enter the real world anytime they feel like it. Oh, also there are the two fishes in this North Pole. But they can like, they they can enter like the real world whenever they feel like it, and normally when they do, they're there to like protect it and stuff. And for the most part, they get along with humans and stuff. Unless a human does something to piss them off, like with Haybot, and then he just becomes corrupt by his emotions. In the Korra series, this is a heck of a lot different. When we get that flashback of Juan and everything, the spirits seem very rude and very mean just to be mean. They live in the real world, whereas people live on the back of lion turtles. Then there's their appearance. They look weird. Like, okay, the good ones and everything, they look like plushy, like stuffed animals and kind of like Digimon or Pokemon. The nice ones are always cute and cuddly, and they have like baby type voices. They're brightly colored and kind of glowy a little bit. Then you have the bad ones and everything. And the bad ones, they no longer look like demonic monsters and everything. Now, all of a sudden, they just look like splotches of paint with neon colors, and they just fly around like wraiths and everything. It's a huge departure from that of like what the original series created. And they look really goofy and hokey. Then there is the spirit world itself. If you're in a good part, it's all bright and colorful and neon lights and everything. But if you're in a bad part, then there are like clouds and a fog and like, and then it kind of resembles a little bit more of what the one from the original series did. I feel like it was a good effort, but more thought should have been placed in there. Maybe it was a time restraint. You know, they had to push out those 13 episodes very quickly. And so maybe they just had to come up with the quickest, like, you know, imagery that they could come up with and stuff. And it also depicts like why the spirit worlds aren't in the real world more. Apparently they were in the real world, and then when mankind developed bending, they hated spirits for whatever reason and just started attacking them. Because apparently, like I said before, people lived on the back of lion turtles. There are four of them, and people assumed they were the only people there, like, you know, on their lion turtle. Once they started to go into, like, you know, the real world forest or whatever you want to call it, then they discovered there are more humans and more lion turtles. They have to hunt for food in the like real world off the lion turtle's back, and that's where the spirits live at. And the spirits are very mean and dangerous at times because they don't like humans for whatever reason. And also the animals they hunt are very dangerous and wild, so they needed bending and stuff. I guess the reason why the spirits just didn't like the humans is because like they hunted animals and stuff. When Juan rescued that of an animal, then they were all like, oh, he's not like everybody else or whatever. And so at some point when Juan freed Vatu and he corrupted like many of the other spirits and people in the world, then there was like a huge like war between like the spirits and like the people. Next thing you know, when he fought Vatu alongside Rava, he felt like, you know, the spirits and the humans need to be separated. So he made like, you know, all the spirits go in like the spirit world and stuff. Then there are like spirit portals, both ones in the South Pole, ones in the North Pole. They had to explain this because of what happened in the events of the original series in the first season. Like, you know, when the two fish spirits, whatever, I forget their name, they had yin and yang or something like that. I can't remember their name. Anyways, whatever their name was, you know, Aang like had to like communicate with like, you know, one of the like spirits. And so how exactly did the spirits get into the world? So I guess they kind of figured, okay, we need to come up with portals, this and that. How did Ivo go into the spirit world when it was mentioned in the original series, but we never got to see it? And stuff like that. So they created like portals and everything, which, yeah, they make sense, but it's literally a portal in the sky. How is the avatar connected to a spirit? How is the avatar connected to a spirit world? How is the avatar the bridge between the spirit world? Well, this is all explained in that one episode, and it's really, really, really rushed and stuff. Then Korra, along with Vara, I think her name is, from the fourth season, they create a new portal and everything with this big doomsday weapon. And once again, it's just rushed and it's just chaotic. It should have been simplified and, like, it should have been its own series. When you try to put it all in a one contained episode, then it just becomes clustered and everything. And like I said before, like that flashback is a really fascinating episode. And I do like a lot of the elements that they created and but like how the avatar was created. It's kind of like they had to come up with some kind of logical way. But like just the way the spirits look in the spirit world and how you're able to get in and out very easily, it's just kind of like it felt like an obstacle in the original series to get into the spirit world. Not just anybody can go there. And now in the Korra series, all you gotta do is meditate and you can astral project yourself into the spirit world, or you can astral project yourself someplace else, or like you just go through a portal and bam, you there. And oh, if you go through a portal, you're able to bend now. And it's just like, it's too much. Simplify it. Nostalgia bait. So this is just a small little gripe, a nitpick of mine. Like, these dudes were doing nostalgia bait before it was a thing in Hollywood with the movies and stuff. I get they want to connect this to the original series. I get they want people to be familiar with this, but people who have watched this show, like, they know who these characters are from the original series, and we don't need newer characters to resemble them in the face, have their voice actors, or be pretty much the counterpart to them. And that's how this like felt when it came to this series. Like whenever I'll see a certain person, I'm all like, wow, they have the exact same face and hairstyle as somebody from the original series. This one person named Shu from the original series looked so much like this one guy in the new series, and he even had the same voice actor. Then there is the team avatars. They're literally a counterpart for the original team. Mako is Zuko. Asumi is Suki. Bolin is like Toph, and also Sokka. And then you have Korra, who is Aang and Katara. And sometimes they resemble each other in the face just a little bit. Sometimes they resemble them within the personality. Like Mako is a bit stubborn and has a little bit of an attitude like Zuko. Bolin is like Sokka with the humor and everything. And it's just one of those things where it's just kind of like, hey, look, I get it. You know what I'm saying? But I watched this series. I don't need a clone version of a character I like. Come up with a completely new character with a completely new personality. Like, take Aang kids and everything and his grandkids. They all have the same personalities of like both Aang and Katara. But there's different traits of it. Tenzin has more of like Katara's like seriousness at times. And whenever Aang wants to be serious, then you have Kaya, who is more like Katara, but less hot-headed and stuff like that. And determined factors similar to that of Aang. And then you have Boomy, who is Boomy just is literally depicted as the original Boomy, and he's not even related to them. He looks like a younger version of the original Boomy. He acts like the original Boomy. Heck, he's probably even voiced by the same actor. I have to go look that up. But Aang also has a silly side, so that's part of his personality and stuff. Then there are the grandkids. They literally act like Aang, but different like traits to them. One silly, one is serious, more in tune with this spiritual side, and the other one is more, I don't know really how to depict Iki. She's a little bit I don't know. I have to think about that. Another major problem other people have, and including myself, is how things are just abandoned once the new season starts. Like you have the Equalists and everything from season one, a group of non-benders who do not like people who bend. They feel oppressed by them and stuff, and they fear them. And so with them, you have like the chi blockers and stuff like that. After season one, they completely disappear. And not only do they disappear, but their entire movement has seemed to have ended just like that. They would have been really, really helpful in that of say season three when people there are like now new airbenders and stuff. Like how would they feel about that? How would they feel about like the spirits being in like, you know, the real world now? And it was such a missed opportunity. Then you have the whole Civil War in season two. And once that's over with, then all of a sudden everybody's getting along with each other. Both water tribes are now getting along. That is completely ended. Then you get season three with the whole Red Lotus thing. After they're defeated, it's said by Zuko, we don't know how many of their members are out there in the world, and they could be anybody in anywhere, making you think it's going to set up for season four, but it's completely abandoned by season four. And it's just like, well, what happened to the Red Lotus? Yes, all their members, well, three of their members died, and their leader is still alive. But there are still sleeper agents out there. What happened to them? Don't know, because it took like a 3 or 6 year jump into the future, and they just decided to abandon that entire storyline. And this is why I say part of the blame needs to go to the creators and the writers and stuff, along with the studio. Like maybe it was the studio who wanted to abandon all that stuff. Maybe it was the creators or the writers. That was such a sloppy way to handle things just so you can come up with a new season and a new plot line. Speaking of each season, oh yeah, I stopped calling these things books a long time ago. That was fun back in the day, but I'm done with that now. Anyway, each season had a completely different villain and a completely different motive and blah, 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 blah. This could have been broken down into 4 different television series with 4 different avatars. They could have had like, you know, you have the stuff going on in season 2 with spirits. You could have had that with Juan in his own series. And you could have had the whole Civil War with the whole water tribes dealing with Katara. Or you could have had like the whole Amon thing. The whole like Red Lotus thing, that could be another avatar. And whatever season 4 is called, that could have been another avatar with the whole political stuff. And it's just, it was such missed opportunities. And even if you didn't want to tell future stories, you could have went back in time and told those stories with different avatars. This is something I've always wanted. Like there are like, what was it? The harmonic conversions is every 10,000 years. That means there's been a lot of avatars and stuff since the original one. So with that, you can literally tell multiple seasons and different avatars and what their life was like. It's something I've always wanted to see. I want to see these other avatars we keep getting glimpses of, and I want to know what happened to them in life. Not every show had to be an origin, but you could have had one that could have been an origin, one that could have shown their greatest like battle, and another one that showed like how they was defeated or their biggest regret. Just something, you know what I'm saying? But for whatever reason, the studios and the creators just didn't do that and stuff. Most likely it was the studios, because the creators are still working with Nickelodeon. The new Avatar, what is it? Aang, the Last Airbender movie, that's coming out in October. The Avatar 7 Havens, that's coming out in about like a year or 2 from now. It keeps getting delayed, and it's coming out on Paramount Plus. with like, with Avatar Studios and that of Nickelodeon working together. And so they still have a partnership with them and stuff. I'm surprised they do after what happened with the Korra series, but they gotta produce it somehow and put it out somehow. In terms of voice casting, Andrea Romano, I believe that's her name. She does a phenomenal job as always, casting the stars of like this show. However, the adult versions of the original like Team Avatar, they just never sound right. Like I don't know what it is. It's just I'm not hearing these new voices in like the characters. Which, when it comes to that Avatar Aang movie, they recast everybody. And so like for the adult versions, and man, I really hope like they can bring it, because the dude who plays Sokka, I've seen him in live action. So far from what's written for him in that show, I don't see or hear Sokka in him, but hopefully he can pull it off. I know the creators said they wanted to cast based on, based on the race of like the characters, because, representation matters, which I truly agree with. And if you know me, I'm all about representation and people voicing like their actual like races and stuff. However, like I've said before, one time, when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm willing to make an exception to bring the original voice cast back, even though they're white. I mean, they're older now. They can play their adult versions. I mean, the dude who played Aang, he came out of hiding, like, because he's been, like, disappeared for, like, 20 years and stuff, and came out of hiding, and his voice is deep. So he can play the adult version and stuff. Now, when it comes to the Korra series, there's a lot more star power in the cast than that of the original series. The people who are casting Korra, they are, pretty well known in either movies or live action television series and stuff. Now, not to knock the original cast, but for the most part, there was really only two huge names in there, movie-wise. Everybody else, there was some pretty big voice acting, like, stars in there, and people more relegated to the small screen. The way if you didn't see their show, you wouldn't know who they were. And of course, I believe that kept the budget down. But here, these stars, are pretty, like, recognizable in television and movies and stuff. And when it comes to that of like that Aang movie that's coming out, one reason why they want representation is because, well, as we all know, when it comes to both this one and the original series, there's a bunch of white people voicing like Asian characters. The first original series only had 2 Asian characters for the main cast, and this series has no Asian people for the like main cast. And now, one interesting thing about this series is that, like in the original series, there were certain things, goals that the Fire Nation wanted to accomplish, but were never able to. And in this series, they finally, well, not the Fire Nation, but those accomplishments finally happened. Ba Sensei fell. I forget which air temple it was, but it's the one where Aang was pissed that, that creator dude started making that one air temple into like a factory and selling it like weapons and stuff to like the Fire Nation. That got destroyed by the Red Lotus. And it's just interesting, like, because also Aang and Zuko created Republic City, and the Fire Nation literally wanted to control, like, the entire world and have everybody under their thumb. And that's kind of what Republic City is kind of like and stuff. I think I probably touched on this, but if not, I'll do it again. Like the hybrid animals, where exactly are they? Like, we don't see them no more in the season 1 when it comes to that of Republic City, because it's more modern looking. But then when you get into the other seasons and the other nations, they are still missing. Like, what happened? Did like Sokka eat all of them? Because he loves to eat. Were they hunted to extinction? Like, what happened to them? That was one of those unique qualities to that of the original series. Seeing these bizarre, strange, like hybrid like animals that let you know that this is a completely different show set in a completely different world. To lose that, it made you feel like you lost a part of the original series because they kept going so far in the other direction. Yeah, there's Naga, there's Pabu and everything, but they're rarely in the show. And then, of course, there are the Sky Bison, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? And the ring-tailed lemurs, but where are all the rest of the animals at? Ah, the dreaded love square, which eventually turned into a love triangle. Fans hate this. I don't mind it so much. I mean, it is kind of like a teen drama, so you expect to see that. So I'm used to seeing that. But a lot of people hated it. Now, I truly feel like this whole love square that eventually turned into a love triangle is the result of the original series not doing it with Aang, Katara, and Zuko, because in that one scene towards the end of season 2 of the original, fans assumed that Katara and Zuko was having a moment. And so because of that, and they did not deliver on that, and they now deliver in the Korra series. It is very confusing, it is very messy, and pretty much everybody dated everybody except for Mako and Bolin. So basically, it starts off with Bolin crushing on Car, but she's not really interested. She actually likes Mako, but Mako started being a jerk towards her and blew her off, thinking she was just another groupie fan, until he found out she was the Avatar and felt bad about that, and said that if he would have known, he would have treated her a whole lot better. Which basically means he was going to treat her like crap if she was just another, wasn't the Avatar. So he starts to like her a little bit, only for him to get run over by Azumi. This causes her to like him, he likes her, she's rich. So he's poor, so you know how that goes and stuff. Anyways, so those two start dating, and Korra ends up getting pissed and kind of starts going with Bolin just to make her his brother jealous. Eventually, nothing becomes of Korra and that of Bolin. And so him and Azumi starts to date and still until he cheats on her with Korra when they kissed. Eventually, him and Azumi broke up because of the whole father thing, and then him and Korra started dating all the way into season 2, where they had tension because he was faithful and went along with whatever she did, but he had his own opinion and she did not like that. Bolin later on went and started dating her cousin, until that blew up in his face and everything, and that was just so chaotic. He liked her, she was clingy, he dumped her, she got pissed. Then when he tried to get back with her, she didn't want him. So after that, in season 2, Bolin starts to crush on Azumi, but she's not interested, period. The square now turns into a love triangle, with eventually Korra and Mako having a huge blow up. Then she loses her memory and forgets that they're broken up. While all that's going on, he starts to have feelings for Azumi again, kisses her. Then it gets very awkward and him and Korra break up again. And then after that, everybody just stays single. The creators realized that fans hated this and tried to shift away from it, giving Mako and Azumi less screen time until the last season. In the last season, towards the end, both Korra and Azumi decide to go into the spirit world, and they look pretty chummy, if you know what I'm talking about. indicating some type of romance. The creators, of course, could not do nothing about that because it was a Nickelodeon kids show, but was able to explore it in the comics where they do date. Now, they say you have to look at the clues and the hints. I couldn't find none, but on a second rewatch, yeah, you start to see them being chummy throughout the entire season 4. Like, especially when Korra went missing for many years, came back, and the whole hug. She hugged Azumi a whole lot more than she hugged that of Mako. Now, I didn't think of nothing about that because I hugged the same exact way, and I'm not in love with nobody. But yeah, you can start to see certain mannerisms, and it's weird because it's kind of like those three all dated each other. You think there would be boundaries or something. But nevertheless, this is one of the worst ships that fans consider because they just hate the whole love triangle. But since Korra has now come out as bisexual and everything, now fans are jumping and loving it. You know, I grappled left and right when it came to this series. Like, when was I gonna release it? You know, was I gonna do it for like Women's History Month, Asian, Indigenous, like when, you know what I'm saying? But since this turned out to be more of a rant than that of a review, I decided to use my normal template and just release it whenever, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel bad because, you know, I really want to like Korra a lot, both the series and the character. And I do like certain aspects of it and her, but it's just like, you know, you have to admit to the facts. The creators went big and bold and they failed. You know what I'm saying? They went too far in the other direction to where they kept writing themselves in a hole and couldn't dig themselves out. That's about it for like, you know, the overall like, you know, review of like the series. So let's get into character bios. Season 1's villain, Amon, voiced by Stephen Bloom. So Amon was the central villain of Season 1, and his cronies were the Equalists, a bunch of chi blockers and stuff. Amon hates benders with passion, but we don't know exactly why until much later. But basically, he brainwashes the people of Republic City to hate like benders. And so this creates a bit of a civil war within like the world of the Avatar universe. Something we've never seen before. We've never truly really seen how non-benders feel about benders and stuff. And we've never seen how benders feel about non-benders. We get a small glimpse of that with Sokka because, you know, Team Avatar tends to pick on him because he doesn't have any bending. We saw that in season 3. And in another season, I forget which one, because they didn't want him to like to get hurt or something like that. And so this was very fascinating. And if done right, this could have been like, you know, universally praised and everything. However, it is divisive. So basically, Amon and these chi blockers, they are very good at fighting. And so they can take down a bender with ease. They also have like these electrical gloves. And Amon's right hand man has these like extremist sticks. Oops, knock the camera over. And so like another thing Amon can do, he can somehow take away people's bending, which terrifies people. And when he takes it away for good. And I love the animation whenever he uses it on people and they look like freaked out and stuff. But the thing is, how in the world is he able to do this? Only lion turtles and the Avatar can do it. Now, Amon's appearance is very striking. It's like meant to instill fear. He wears a mask on his face. And it's pretty terrifying and stuff with his little hood on. The big question is, How in the world is he able to take away people's bending? He has the avatar spooked and everything. She is terrified. She's having dreams and nightmares about him. And he eventually takes away her bending, all three elements that she can bend. Then somehow she still hasn't mastered air yet. And all of a sudden, with anger in her fist, she strikes at him and she's able to produce air. So after that, and not really learning how to master air, she just starts like throwing out like, gusts of wind and stuff like that. And he is later exposed. But he was exposed before that. It turns out that Armand is from the water tribe. And not only is he a water bender, but he is also a blood bender. And that is how he's able to take away people's bending. That don't make no sense. That literally makes no sense as to how he's able to take away people's bending. The moment this was revealed, everything mysterious and terrifying about Armand just went completely out the air. Like it literally did. And because people just kept scratching their heads as to how the heck he's able to do this. Now, chi blockers, they can't take away your bending. They can just disable your limbs with pressure points and stuff. In a way, it's kind of like that, but not really. See, the reason why Armand is such a great fighter is because he literally says he uses blood bending against people to anticipate like their strikes and avoid them and stuff like that. But the thing about Armand is he's able to blood bend without a full moon. And so how is this possible? Well, it has to do with his father and his brother. See, his father was a tyrant and a crime lord and everything, and he went up against Aang and Team Avatar in their adult years. This is the cool flashback we got, minus Katara. They do Katara so dirty in this show. But anyway, so we see an older Sokka, we see Toph, and we see Aang and everything. And his father, whose name I forgot, is on trial. Next thing you know, he starts bloodbending everybody in the trial and everything and tries to make his escape, only for Aang to bust out and hunt him down and everything. Then Aang is able to take away his bending by energy bending him. After this, he fled and went to, I forget which one, North or South Pole, but I forget which one. And I think it might have been North, I can't remember. And while there, he met a woman, changed his identity, and had 2 kids. Tarlok was the youngest kid, and Armand, whose real name I forgot, was the oldest. And so basically, his father was vengeful and wanted him to continue his fight against the Avatar for taking away his bending. So he taught his sons how to bloodbend. He claims that their family line have like tons of bloodbenders. This don't make no sense because the very first one we ever got introduced to was Hama, and she taught Katara and everything, and they had to use a full moon. And we also got to know how and why Hama started bloodbending. We got a nice little backstory with that. Here, we don't get no backstory. So how did his family come up with this technique and everything? And why wasn't it never really mentioned before? Because they had to create a new villain. So he would take them out into like the wilderness and everything and force them to bloodbend like wolves and stuff like that. They didn't really like doing, well, he did. Armand liked doing it at first, but his younger brother didn't. Then their father got very violent and tried to hurt Tarlok and everything. So Armand protected his brother by basically telling his dad, I'm more powerful than you, and if you ever try to hurt me or my brother, I will end you and everything. Then he decides he's gonna just run away at age like 14. He tries to bring Tarlok with him, but he doesn't want to come. And telling Tarlok that he is weak and everything. After that, he disappeared and was never seen again. His father decided to give up his vengefulness and just decided to live like a boring, peaceful little life. Tarlok became like the chancellor or something like that of Republic City, or the president, one of those two. And so, yeah, that is how he's able to take away people's bending, blood bending, some bizarre way. Team Avatar exposes him to that of like the equalists and everything in the public, and now they're pissed at him and no longer want to follow him. Him and Korra, they fight, but it's a pretty lackluster fight, and she doesn't even defeat him. Basically, he took away his brother's bending as well. And when they was on a speedboat, because yeah, they have that now in this show, he's all like, we'll start new someplace else and nobody will know who we are and blah, blah, blah. And Tarlok decided, nah, I'm just going to end this for both of us because we've been through too much pain and everything. We haven't been happy since we were little kids before we learned how to blood bend. So he takes an electrical glove and he sets the gasoline on fire and the speedboat literally blows up. And I think it blows up on screen. This show kills a lot of people and somewhat on screen and everything. And so they took this amazing villain who was mysterious, and then it was a big whimper as to how somehow he's able to take away people's bending. People believe online that maybe, just maybe, he is able to block their chi. Maybe, like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? It's still a little too far-fetched because he seems so mysterious and mystical and spiritual and everything that you thought he could like spirit bend. He should have been saved as a villain for season 2. Now, after he was defeated, the Equalists just completely disappeared from the show. They're never really mentioned again. And it's like, where the heck are they? They're still in Republic City, but they're not like protesting and hating on like vendors and stuff. And it's just kind of like, okay, I get it. Now you got that season 2 and season 3 and 4. Bring this back up. You know what I'm saying? Just don't leave people hanging. And that's exactly what the creators did. They left people hanging. So it's very unsatisfying as a story arc, because everything that happened that was cool just completely just like washed away and stuff. So the reason why Armand hated like benders and stuff is because of what happened in his childhood. Stated by his brother, like they were happy when they was younger and had a great time until their father taught them like blood bending. He feels that bending is just like corruption and stuff, and he wants to go back to that peaceful time when him and his brother like kind of just wanted to like just hang and stuff like that. And he feels that benders are just too like, you know, evil and this and that and all that crap, even though he's a hypocrite because he's going to keep his own bending. Season 2 villain Yulaw and Vatu. So basically, Yulaw, I think that's his name, is the uncle of Korra, and he's the chief of like the Northern Water Tribe. It turns out that his brother, who's Korra's father, was supposed to be the chief, but what is this? I think it's Yulaw. I think his name is Unalaw. So Unalaw, he done something to cause his brother to get like, you know, banished and stuff like that. That had to do with like the spirits and stuff. I think he like opened a portal or something to the spirit world. He did something. I can't remember exactly what he did. But he left, went to the Southern Water Tribe, and then later met someone and had Korra. And so Korra was technically supposed to be a princess and everything. But, you know, instead it's her uncle. And so, like, his goal is kind of interesting. He wants to free this really dark spirit named Vato, and he wants to become the Dark Avatar. This is cool. This is fascinating. Two avatars fighting against each other. Something that you never would think of because there's only one avatar. And so, if done right, this could be really cool. Well, it was bogged down by all this spirit nonsense and stuff. Them trying to explain the spirit world, them explaining the first avatar, how the avatar became like, the bridge between both worlds and everything, Rava, and all this other stuff. Then there is the whole Civil War thing. The Civil War is just a distraction to try to get to Korra. Basically, spirits have been entering the real world, dark, evil spirits and stuff, and hurting people. So Unala goes to that of Korra and wants her to, like, open up like a portal and, like, do something to make the spirits go back. And he told her he can teach her her spiritual side so that she can go into the avatar state. Now, Unala can do something really interesting. He can actually cleanse a spirit by waving his hands around, and it makes this yellow swirl go around the spirit, and they go from being evil back to good or whatever. And we have no idea how he's able to do this. He's not water bending or nothing like that. Apparently, he studied spirits and learned this hand motion thing that can do it. Should have been explained a whole lot better. And of course, Korra picks it up very quickly, and she's able to do it. Even though she's never really been taught, she just saw him do it. Anyways, so he is talking about some type of civil war, some conspiracy, this and that, and he frames Korra's father and mother and other people and stuff like that. And so it basically starts this giant civil war between the North and the South. And Katara is completely absent, which I am so pissed off about that. So anyways, he wants to free Vaatu. And Vaatu has been encased in a tree in the spirit world. He needs Korra to open up this portal so he can get to what's her name and this and that. And so basically, he just does a typical villain thing. He wants to be the Dark Avatar, and he wants to take over the world and everything. He threatens Tenzin's like family and kids and all this other stuff. Typical villain stuff. Also, his two kids, the prince and princess, they're evil as, what kind of evil? They basically just do what he wants and everything. And so you think by this time, well, why doesn't Korra just take away his bending? She knows how to energy bend now. She doesn't, for some bizarre reason. She never does that with her villains. Makes no sense. I guess it's because of the fear she experienced, but look, Aang knew with your really bad villains, you gotta do that and stuff. And so after Vaatu is like freed, like he becomes a Dark Avatar. So it's kind of like, cool, but wait, hold up. Just because he has this spirit in him doesn't mean he's going to have all the elements. He's only a water bender. So he's not that impressive of an avatar because he's down 3 spirits. But don't you worry, because they went the CGI hokiness and the neon lights with the spirits, he turns into a demonic force. He doesn't even keep his human body form that long. And then he turns into a giant kaiju. Korra, at some point, she turns into like a giant kaiju. And it's a heck of a fight where she can barely, defeat her villain. And her spirit gets ripped out of her and banged to death to where she loses the connection to all her past avatars. But somehow she's able to defeat him and re-encase Vato and stuff like that. But she barely was able to win. Now Vato is like the evil spirit that fights with Rava constantly. He's dark, she's light. He's black, she's white. And so it's kind of like yin and yang. And every 10,000 years, they have to basically fight each other at the something harmonic conversion or something like that. I forget the name of it. And so, like, Juan, the original Avatar, he broke up their fight because he thought Vatu was the good guy and Raba was the bad person. This caused a mess, and everywhere he goes, he corrupts like dark spirits. Same thing with Unalaq. When Unalaq was in the spirit world, every time he would pass by like a spirit, he would automatically turn it evil somehow. And they would like help him out. And so basically, Juan and Rava had to merge together and defeat like Vatu and stuff and put him in that tree. Then, like I said, later on, 10,000 years later, he was freed by Korra and stuff like that. And then, like, you know, now the thing about both these spirits is that they can't die. They always like come back some way or somehow. So even if he was to defeat Raba and stuff, she would come back and everything, because those two are always destined to be, battling each other and stuff. It's a really interesting concept. I like their designs and stuff. And I like the idea of how the Avatar, became spiritually bound to like the spirit world and stuff. But we should have got more of like an evil Avatar versus a good one instead of a giant anime kaiju fight and stuff. Season 3 villain, Zaire, and that of the Red Lotus. Having a Red Lotus and a White Lotus was kind of cool. It's kind of like the evil Avatar, good Avatar. However, once again, we never really truly see both Lotuses fight each other. I mean, we do when they break out their prisons, but that's about it. And other than that, we never get to see a huge battle between like the two fractions. Because of the simple fact, the White Lotus is just a bunch of random soldiers that serve under the Avatar and Tenzin in the Council of Republic City. And so the Red Lotus has to fight Team Avatar and also the kids of the original Team Avatar. Zaire is a very focused and driven philosophical villain. During the harmonic conversion thing, he became an airbender. And the thing that was always odd about him is like, how the heck is he able to airbend so like perfectly? Like, he's able to defeat Katara's like daughter. He can hold his own against Tenzin and everything. He can hold his own against Korra. And it's like, how? He just literally became an airbender for 2 weeks. Well, he stated that he's been studying air nomads and their philosophies over the years and stuff. The reason for this, it is revealed that the Red Lotus was going to kidnap Korra along with her uncle. But they got found out and got defeated and imprisoned. And then the uncle just completely like bailed on them and had his own motive to become the Dark Avatar and stuff. And so his elite team of fighters are really, really, really good. It helps make season 3 that much better, because we now have true villains with a true goal and everything. His goal is to abolish the establishment. His goal is to abolish all political leaders and the Avatar. He wants the people to be truly free and the people to rule the people and stuff, with no rules, no boundaries and everything. And so this is interesting. It's basically what we saw kind of in The Dark Knight Rises. And so I guess he was going to teach Korra how to airbend, since they were going to take Tenzin out and his family. And so this dude has literally studied so much of the philosophies of the air nomads that he discovered that one air nomad literally detached himself from everything to where he was weightless and everything, and he could literally fly without gusts of wind or clouds and stuff. He is the second avatar to only fly on his own. And so that makes him like pretty like, hard to like defeat and everything. But in an amazing battle, and I mean an amazing. Oh, also this dude can literally enter the spirit world. He meditates. How he learned this, I don't know. Personally, I would prefer if people meditated to go into the spirit world as opposed to going into a portal and everything. But like whatever. So this dude is able to like have secret meetings with other people by going into the spirit world and astral project himself there because there are Red Lotus members all around the world. And so like and he's also a very calm dude. Like that's what's really interesting about him. Now, of course, like he fought both Qatar, I keep saying Qatar, Korra's father and Korra when Korra was chained up. And it was an epic battle. This was on point with the season 3 finale of the original series. And just like I said before, this dude wants to get rid of the establishment. He kills the Earth Queen and everything. And we literally see him kill her on screen. He started sucking the air out her body, then he wrapped her head around a spear of air and she suffocated on screen. And not only that, but he wanted to get rid of Korra. They devised mercury, a poison, and they injected it in her body. This was supposed to trigger the avatar state because she lost her past like lives and stuff and was separated from her spirit. And so they're going to trigger the avatar state and kill her to make sure there will be no more avatars and stuff. But like I said before, she whooped on him and defeated him and everything as the rest of his teammates all died and stuff. As for his teammates, I forget their names, but there's a waterbender who does not have no arms. So she creates like, tentacles and literally arms and claws out of like water and ice. She's really strong and is able to whoop on almost everybody. She dies because literally Mako electrocuted her arms and stuff and she died on screen. Then there is a earthbender who can lava bend. This is like, I think probably the first time we've ever seen somebody lava bend. Because we've seen a volcano on Roku's island and everything, but nobody lava bend. So, like, this dude literally takes, like, the magma from the earth and brings it on the surface and starts burning stuff. Now, lava is not fire. At first, when I kept seeing it, I thought he was a firebender, but he's not. Lava is literally just heated rock. Heated rock that's like mushy and melted is molten lava or molten magma and stuff, and it only stops when it cools off. And Toph literally told Bolin, because he later found out he was one, that is very rare because of the simple fact it just keeps running and doesn't stop and stuff until of course it cools off. And so when this dude realizes he can't defeat them and they're like going back to prison, he's like, we're all going down. And he literally kills himself with the lava and everything. Then, okay, I have to say this word slow because I can't get it out. Combustion woman. I hate saying that. She's a combustion bender. Same way as like, the third eye dude from season 3 of Avatar. And so she's able to firebend from her forehead and make things blow up. She is really great as like a sniper, and she's Zahir's girlfriend. Basically, she's fighting both Lin and Su Lin, and she's having a hard time taking them down. But then Su Lin has the brilliant idea. The moment this woman's about to fire from her forehead, Su Lin wrapped her head around in metal. Her head literally blew up. Oh my god. After this, Saeed was in prison, and then he met Korra in season 4, gave her some advice, helped her go into the spirit world, because he realized he created a monster by killing the Earth Queen. And a tyrant took up, and this is not what he wanted. As for the Red Lotus, we don't know who the rest of the members are because this storyline gets completely dropped. Season 4 villain Kavira. So she's a metal bender living in the metal city and everything. We see her in season 3 as she saves Korra's father from dying, and she literally tells him her name, and it's just kind of like, that's interesting. They made it seem like she's important, but who the heck is she? Well, for whatever reason, in season 4, a couple of years have passed and she has now become a tyrant. She wants to fix the Earth Kingdom because Saeed screwed it up by killing the Earth Queen and telling the people, do whatever you want. You have no rules and everything. So the Earth Kingdom has become very dangerous with tons of like people stealing and looting and killing and this and that. She wants to take over the Earth Kingdom and restore balance to it and everything so it can be peaceful again. She also wants to rule all the other nations under like her thumb and everything because she wants order. Now, it turns out she is an orphan. Her parents, just for whatever reason, just got rid of her. And it turns out in the comics, she had a very rambunctious like attitude. And so she couldn't get along with like her parents. They just got rid of her. Sulin took her in and taught her how to metal bend. And so she's a very lackluster villain. And I mean a very lackluster villain with a somewhat stupid motive and everything. Bringing balance to the Earth Kingdom, fine. But wanting to take over the rest of the world makes no sense. And so, like, she wants to create a doomsday weapon. I'm not sure why. And she does it with the spirit vines from when Korra left the portal open and they grew all around Republic City. So, it's a very lackluster, boring season, and somehow Korra just can't fight this girl. She's kicking her butt. Now, it could be because there was a little poison inside of Korra, also the PTSD, but Korra should have been able to take her once the poison was out. But Korra can't because I don't know what's the deal with Korra, man, when she fights people. But anyways, they both enter like the spirit world somehow because the doomsday weapon with the spirit vines and something else caused an explosion to create a brand new portal in the middle of like Republic City. And she's defeated by a speech. Korra tells her, hey, what you're doing is wrong, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, really? Wow, after all these years, I'm going to come to my senses now. And gives up. Worst season ever. Uncle Iroh. So surprisingly, and I mean surprisingly, Uncle Iroh is in the spirit world. We find this out in season 2 when Korra is there. Apparently, he said that when all of his work was done in the real world, he decided to travel to that of the spirit world and live out the rest of his days and stuff. Now, whether or not like he traveled through the portal or he meditated to get there, or he died, and moments before he died, he transferred his like soul or spirit into the spirit world is really unknown. And it was a nice pleasant feel to see this dude because people love this character from the original series. Now of course the original voice actor Mako died and he was later replaced. The new voice actor does a better job voicing him here than he did in season 3. And I can understand because, he was new to like the role in season 3 of the original series and stuff. It is because of Iroh that he helps Korra start to chill out because she was always such a cranky person and stuff. And since talking with him, she's been very mellow ever since and understanding things better. He shows up again in like season three, I think it is, when she's looking for something. That's not season three or season four. She's looking for somebody. Oh, that's right. She's looking for Zahir, and then she finds Iroh. Zhao. So Zhao disappeared at the end of season one finale of the original series when he was defeated by that of what was it? One of the spirits. Not the moon one, but the other one. And so like people have been wondering what the heck exactly happened to him. Like he just got like engulfed and that was it. Well, the spirit took him back to the spirit world and there he's been ever since, wandering around, losing his mind and stuff. A fitting end for such an evil person. Azumi's father. So, this dude turned out to be a horrible person in season one. In season one, originally, what was it? He was a donator to that of Korra, Mako's, and Bolin's like, pro bending team and stuff. He gave them like new outfits and sponsored them and stuff like that, right? And so he seemed like he was a pretty cool guy. He's also an inventor who created all these like mechs, suits, and all kind of other stuff. But then it turned out he's working for Amon. He's an equalist. He does not like benders and stuff. After like him and his daughter, I think they duked it out in mechanized suits, I think, and he was defeated. We didn't see him no more after that because he got arrested. But then he popped back up in season four. And remember, season four, there's a couple of time jumps from in between every other season, and of course, season like four. Here, like he wants to rebuild his friendship with his daughter, and she accepts, only for Korra not to like believe him. Later on, he helps defeat the villain by sacrificing himself in a mech suit to save that of his daughter. Personally, I did not want to see him redeemed. Not everybody has to be redeemed. But he follows this whole trait of like evil fathers in the Avatar universe. I don't know why there's so many evil fathers. Bring in an evil mother. Tenzin's wife. She's his wife. She's nice, and that's all we know. Moving on. Naga and Pabu. So Naga is the polar bear dog of Korra. I've always wondered, like, what kind of animals do, like, the Water Tribe people have? I don't think we've ever seen them before. So it was just kind of like, what the heck do they have? Because we didn't explore that much time in either tribe in the original series. And so apparently their way of travel is like a polar bear dog, which is a giant, like, polar bear slash dog. To me, I don't know. It always looks more like just a giant dog, like Clifford. You know what I'm saying? It's a golden retriever, but it's white. But it kind of resembles a polar bear because of its size and everything. The animals get like sidelined so much in this series, the way you don't really know too much about them. They don't really have that much personality traits similar to that of like Momo or Appa. Naga is actually a girl, and I found that out in season two, but she's voiced by the dude who voiced Momo and Appa. And so the only personality trait that Naga has is that she likes to eat, and when Korra didn't have no treats for her to eat, she got pissed, turned around, and slapped Korra in the face with her tail. As for Pabu, he is like, what exactly is he? He looks kind of like a ring-tailed fox or one of those red foxes and something else. A ferret. And so he is Bolin's pet. And there's not really much to him. He just kind of pops in and kind of pops out. He's cute, but they don't do nothing with him. Korra's father. He's actually a good father, so that's a great thing. He's probably the only good father next to that of Sokka's and Katara's father. And so he was supposed to be the chief of the Northern Water Tribe, got kicked out, went to the South. And basically, he kind of pops in and out. Like, the cool thing about him, he is overly protective of his daughter. She's the avatar, and she's supposed to be able to take care of herself, but which we see she can't. There's a reason why, like, he's protective of her. One, that's his daughter, and two, he knows that she just jumps into things without thinking. He's a pretty good waterbender, but he's not all that because he ends up getting his butt kicked by the Red Lotus. The Earth Queen. This woman is pure evil and a tyrant. She hates animals. And she blames Korra because of what Aang did back in the day when it came to her father. And it's kind of interesting. Her father kind of had more darkish kind of skin, more of a tan, and she doesn't. But like, she kidnapped all the brand new airbenders and stuff because she wanted her own airbending army. And so she had the Dai Li capture them and train them down below. They was later freed, and of course Zahir ended up murdering her. Now, she's pissed also at Aang because him and Zuko took land from the Earth Kingdom and made Republic City. I've always wondered where exactly Republic City came from because it was never on the Avatar map many years ago. And so I guess he pulled a Kyoshi and just separated the land and put it on over there. Prince Ru is the new throne to that of the Earth Kingdom. He's arrogant, he's selfish, he's comedic relief, kind of like Sokka. It's like they always keep bringing in new comedic relief because I guess Bolin's just not doing it for them. He has a crush on Korra, and he wants Mako to be his bodyguard. Him and Mako get into an argument talking about, you don't know the first thing about me, and he actually wants to listen and hear him out. He is who he is. Lord Zuko is the former Fire Lord. This kind of sucks, man, because I just always wanted to see this dude be Fire Lord and be called that. We only got a glimpse of it at the very, very end of the original series. But here he has relinquished his throne and everything. And he gave it to that of his daughter. His daughter is pretty pleasant and everything. Like, she's not evil, but she refuses to, like, help Republic City fight off that of Kavara during the events of season 4 because she said the Fire Nation has already been through like 100 years of war and she's not about to put like her nation into another one and stuff. She has a son named Iroh and stuff. And that's interesting because, you know, the original Iroh. And he's a general. Not much is known about him. He looks exactly like Zuko except for the scar. His hair is different. He's a firebender, but he's not all that. We really don't get to see him do much. He kind of just pops in and out of every season, and he's voiced by the original Zuko actor, Danny Bosco. And so with like Lord Zuko and everything, I think he showed up in season 2, if I'm not mistaken. And I was curious, I'm all like, is he alive? Is he dead? Like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Because he was briefly mentioned in season 1, but we didn't know like his fate. And so like, he's a lot nicer now and sarcastic, but he doesn't help fight in like the battle and stuff like that. But he does defend off a couple of Red Lotus people very briefly. And then like, he has a dragon, and I'm just kind of like, how the heck did he get a dragon? There's only 2 left. So apparently in the comics, he found like a dragon egg, and now he has a dragon. Dante Bosco, my bad. Katara. It is criminal how they did this woman in this series. I expected she would be like, you know, helping Korra out more, giving Korra advice. leading an army during the civil war of like the water tribes, but no. They completely sidelined this woman so much that we only see her in her old form. She looks like her grand. And the only time we see her as a young adult is in a picture with the rest of her family, and that is literally it. She is still a master waterbender and a master healer, and that's really all they do this season. They have her pop up, give a little bit of advice, and have her heal korra. And I'm just kind of like, that is blasphemy, because in season 1 of the original series, she didn't want to be just a healer. She wanted to fight and everything. And that's what caused her to fight Paku and everything. And I'm just like, they literally made her into what she never wanted to be. And so, like, we don't even get to see her interact with her adult kids that much and stuff. In fact, I think she only talks to Tenzin, maybe, and everything, but I don't even think she does that. And so, like, we never get to see her fight. She couldn't even heal Korra's body when Korra had, like, the poison in her and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh wait, isn't she supposed to be a master healer and everything? Like, the woman literally brought Aang back from the dead when she was just a teenager. How you gonna sideline this woman? Couldn't you give her some like spirit water and help her cleanse Korra's body? We know they can go in and out the spirit world now, so why couldn't you get some of that? And the whole excuse of, oh, we're old and you have to let the young people take care of everything. No, because in the original series, we saw old people throw down. Like, even a 112-year-old man threw down. So there is no excuse. And I'm tired of fans making the excuse of she's old. No. That is what the creators want you to believe. They didn't want to overshadow the new cast. The problem is they made the new cast so uninteresting that they needed some overshadowing and everything. Ooh, that makes me so mad how they did this woman. Because I love myself some Katara, you know what I'm saying? Okay, minor correction. So Kaya was mentioned in the first episode of season 1, but she didn't show up until season 2. So it's almost like they had no intention of ever showing her. Also, yeah, of course, you know, Tenzin does interact with his mom. But the other two really only have like really 1, maybe 2 scenes together with Katara, which is really weird because, you know, their family and stuff. Eska and Desmond. Eska is voiced by Aubrey Plaza. So both these two are the cousins of like Korra and their prince and a princess. And they are emo, very emo. Basically, they had the personality of May, which that should have been their mother. So they're our May counterpart. Like, everything, they just seem very lifeless and everything. They're monotone when they speak. Bolin crushed on Eska when he first saw her, and because of that, she kind of liked it and became very like love-stricken by him very quickly, wanting to get married and this and that, only for him to realize she's too clingy and he doesn't want her no more, and he left her. When he left her, she became berserk and chased after him when he was on the speedboat, and she was just bending the water, going completely after him and stuff. She hates Korra because she feels Korra wedged like something between them to where they broke up and everything. But, you know, their father is, of course, evil, the Korra's uncle. So they do his bidding and they fight off like Team Avatar so he can try to be the Dark Avatar. Eventually they realize he's going a little bit too far and everything, and eventually they do get defeated. And then by the next season, they're just mellow again. They've taken over the Water Tribe Kingdom, and now they're nice all of a sudden. And it's just kind of like, once again, you have these characters that are kind of interesting, and then, you know, they just do nothing with them. When Bolin tries to get back with Eska, she doesn't want him no more, which turns out he actually did have feelings for her and started crying. Okay, this is where I'm going to cap it off because the video got way too long talking about 4 seasons, and so this is part 1. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.